Hi, my name is Brian Cobb. I am the Michael Lamb Professor of Pathology at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. I'm a member of the Cherokee tribe, and my ancestry kind of goes back to what was known as the Trail of Tears. So we can trace my family's ancestry back to Georgia, and we know that one of my ancestors in particular was actually on the Trail of Tears, and she was pregnant at the time. And thankfully, she survived that journey. Otherwise, I would not be here. Um, I grew up mostly in northeast Oklahoma, about 90 minutes or so from a town called Tahlequah, which is the capital of the Cherokee Nation. And I come from a family who's didn't have much in the way of college degrees. So my brother was the first one in the immediate family to graduate college with a bachelor's degree. I'm the only one in my family to have attained any kind of graduate degree or advanced degree beyond that. And it's important for me to acknowledge that along the way, I would not be here if I wouldn't have received support at many levels, both from the Cherokee Nation directly, through grants and through other support networks. So in particular, as an undergraduate at the University of Oklahoma, I was given a scholarship to be what was called a retention intern. And so that was given to seniors and junior students, so advanced undergraduates that were doing well, and it paired us up with undergraduates, or not undergraduates, but freshmen who were just coming into the university, and as a way to kind of set up a support network for them and have kind of that social connection through the Native American Student Association. And so that was one of the scholarship programs that I was involved in as an undergraduate. As a graduate student, I was able to secure an NRSA F fellowship from the NIH through a kind of pre-doctoral minority student award mechanism that was supported by the National Eye Institutes of NEI. And then as I moved on to a postdoctoral fellowship, I was able to secure a postdoctoral fellowship through the Ford Foundation while I was in Dennis Casper's lab at Harvard University School of Medicine. And so along the way, I've received a ton of support. And it's really that support that has enabled me to be where I'm at now. And a tenured full professor with an endowed chair here at Case Western Reserve University. So I'm very proud of not only my accomplishments, but also very happy and feel very lucky to have received that amount of support. And it's really that support that has led me to a lot of the career decisions that I've made along the way. One in particular is that I have always made it a major point to be involved with educational programs. So even as a graduate student, I was part of the program that brought in underrepresented minority students from local high schools into graduate labs. And so I was a mentor for a couple of those students as a graduate student. And then later on, when I got here to Case Western Reserve University, I ended up taking over the immunology training program in 2012. So I've been in that role since right around the time that I was promoted to associate professor and awarded tenure. And so I've been directing that program for about 9 years. And so that Ph.D. program has about 35 students, give or take, each year, total. And so I'm the director of that program, and I teach a couple of the courses and involved with several others. I'm also the PI of a training grant, a T32, an institutional training grant through the NIH. That's also supported from the NIAID. And I'm very, very proud to say that over the time that I have held that grant, I wasn't the one that initially earned that grant, but I renewed it for the first time and then a second time just very recently. And over that time period, we've gone from, I think it was 5% underrepresented minority students within that training program to over 30%. So I'm very proud of that. And I feel that that's a very strong part of what I should be doing as part of my responsibility as a faculty member, and especially as an underrepresented faculty member. So So that's kind of my general story from a professional service perspective. But from a research perspective, my interests are in what I would call glycoimmunology. So roughly translated, that's the immunology of glycans and glycosylation, and what role do glycans and protein glycosylation have on the function of the immune system. And if you're hearing this for the first time and thinking, well, I don't even know anything about that, consider a couple things. One, that essentially every protein that a cell makes, secreted into the environment. So we're talking cytokines, growth factors, chemokines, these types of molecules, antibodies. The vast majority of these molecules are glycoproteins, so they're glycosylated through the secretory pathway in the Golgi apparatus, and there's glycans there. Likewise, essentially every protein at the cell surface, so all the cytokine receptors, chemokine receptors, MHC1 and 2, T cell receptor, B cell receptor, FC receptors, all of these molecules are heavily glycosylated. And there is very little information known about the functional consequences of those glycans and what happens to those molecules when you change those glycans due to an inflammatory stimulus or other factors. And so my lab is particularly interested in understanding the regulation of glycosylation as it relates to the immune response. And there are two focus points within that realm. For a long time, we had been working on microbial polysaccharides and how they activate the immune system, specifically T cell activation. We're not really doing that much anymore. We've kind of moved on from that and are looking at the regulation of glycosylation of antibodies, so IgG glycosylation and its regulation. And kind of through doing that research, stumbled onto another aspect that we're now looking at in terms of how tissue glycans can drive macrophage polarization and kind of function within each individual tissue. So, how do liver macrophages, so Kupffer cells, how do those differentiate in liver specifically in terms of how they're responding to the glycans in that localized environment? So those are two of the main areas that we are currently funded to work on, and I'm very excited about the work that we're doing. And the field of glycoimmunology is really an exciting one because there's very few people working in that field, so there's a lot of room and a lot of opportunity for creative thinking. The downside of that is that because it's a small field, there's a lot of unanswered questions, and it's sometimes a little bit of a frustrating sell to get people interested and to acknowledge the importance of these glycan changes. And studying them can be kind of difficult sometimes, although it's not nearly as difficult as I think most people imagine it to be. So that's my story. I'm happy to talk to anybody. You can contact me by email. I also have a Twitter account. It's carbohydrates. We'll put a link below this, and so that you can reach out to me by Twitter or on this post at Facebook. I think that AAI is going to post this at Facebook. You can reach me by email. I'm happy to talk to anybody about our research, about my role in education, and about other things underrepresented minority related. If you'd like, I'm happy to talk. So thank you.